Paolo Banchero sets the record straight and has begun to silence doubters all over again, including me, today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is January 30th, 2026. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, Paolo Banchero sets the record straight as the Orlando Magic try to quiet noise around the team and get themselves out of this rut. We'll chat a little bit about what Paolo had to say, the rumors surrounding this team, and how this team moves forward. Plus, why Paolo Banchero is now doing his part. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a minute. Plus, an update from Franz Wagner directly. We'll get to that in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies, our everydayers who listen 5 days a week, who listen on our weekend episodes, who make us part of your regular podcast rotation, who make us your first listen of the day, who are part of our everydayer club. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic such a great community, and we want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. When you go through a losing streak like the Magic have gone through and you don't meet expectations, especially with the amount that the Magic have paid to get this team together, there's going to be noise. It is unavoidable. Fans are talking about it. I will acknowledge it. It does feel like this season was always going to be something of a turning point. I have made this clear. I am a Jamahl Mosley supporter. I don't think fans quite give Jamahl the credit that he deserves, but this was always a season that Jamahl Mosley would be under the spotlight. This was always the season where Jamahl Mosley would prove whether he is a coach that's going to lead them to their next phase or whether this is kind of the ceiling. Whether this is where the ride stops. And look, that's not to say Jamahl's a bad person, a bad coach. That's just reality. Some coaches don't have the chops to take you to the next stage. Sometimes you're just with the team too long and the voice stops resonating. We've gone through these issues so much over the last few days. And look, I've told people this. The Magic could be on track to win 50 games. They could win a playoff series. But if they can't beat the title contenders in the East, if they don't look like they are pointing in the direction of a championship, then that's probably the sign that it's time to move on and trying to find a coach that could squeeze that extra little bit out of this team. It has obviously been a difficult season. Like there is no getting around that. The Magic are sitting in 7th place essentially in the Eastern Conference, the exact same spot they finished last year. There's a long way to go. But Orlando is not anywhere near where they hoped they would be. There are extenuating circumstances, as everyone I talk to with the Magic will plainly say we're missing 2 starters. And the Magic have been missing 2 starters for most of the year. Almost healthy. We'll get to the Franz update toward the end of the show. But the losing and the lack of expectations, the easiest thing to change on a team that has a lot of long-term contracts that could be very difficult to trade, the easiest thing to change is the head coach, to get a new voice in there. And no doubt about it, the Magic as a culture, the Magic as a team, despite the improvements in talent, despite being able to pull out wins that they probably didn't deserve to get, despite having a better record than their stats would suggest, this team is going backward right now. Now, there's a lot of time. There's still time to change it. There's still time to make more of this season. 37 games or so. If you could go 27-10, it doesn't matter. if you could go, if you go 20 and 17, like that's probably not going to be good enough. But you get the point. 37 games is a lot of time to turn this thing around. And these are the most important 37 games of Jamahl Mosley's tenure with the Orlando Magic. This is where he will either meet those expectations or the Magic will have to ask themselves some very big questions heading into the offseason. And I think a lot of us feel that the answer to those questions are pretty apparent with how much this offense has struggled and how big of a step back the defense has taken. Injuries acknowledged. But the noise has been louder. On Wednesday, on the Hoop Collective with Brian Windhorst, ESPN's Tig McMahon gave legs to a rumor that has been whispered. A rumor that has been shared on social media from dubious sources. A rumor that, yes, I have heard too, but not from people who would know anything. There's been a lot of speculation. There has been a lot of inferencing, a lot of reading between the lines, looking at subtext and not looking at maybe the actual facts, or maybe reading into things that aren't things at all. That's the rumor mill in the NBA. And so when a national reporter finally put his name and his weight behind this speculation, that's just pouring gasoline on the fire. If you missed it on Wednesday, Tim McMahon said that there is speculation that Paolo Banchero and Jamahl Mosley don't see eye to eye. And again, consider the source. Like, Tim McMahon was in Dallas. He doesn't know Mosley. He could have easily called him up, gotten the answer that we got before the game. I've been hearing from scouts asking me about Jamahl Mosley's status since Game 5, since the series against Boston, asking me if he was in trouble. And I was like, no, like, he did a crazy good job this year, or last year. So let's set the record straight then. Because Jamahl Mosley, of course, flat out denied it. He said that, look, we're all competitive people. We are frustrated right now. But his communication with Paolo has been fine. But ultimately, and this goes back to so many things I've said about Paolo over the course of the season, it's going to be on Paolo to quiet the noise. And Paolo did. And a very frank, honest, seemingly authentic response to the question, like, there's been a lot of noise about this. What's your reaction to the comments? Paolo said, quote, he, Jamahl Mosley, has helped me a lot. We have a lot of open communication. Whatever those reports are, I wouldn't say those are true. One thing I know about myself and know about him is that we were both fierce competitors. When you are losing a lot of games and things aren't going well, people are upset. Me and him haven't had any blowups or arguments. Me and him are pretty aligned when we talk to each other and figure stuff out. Winning cures all, as Banchero would later say. And of course, saying this after a big victory over the Miami Heat. Saying this after a 31-point game, a second straight 30-point game for Paolo. Saying this in the conditions that the Magic are in, I'd say that's a pretty big response. Look, you don't have to be a genius to understand. You don't have to be an insider to know that this team is extremely frustrated. You don't need to turn on the translation to Mo Wagner's podcast to know that they're trying a lot of different things and very few things are working. And obviously it's Occam's razor. It's a simple thing. It's playing how you played Wednesday with a lot of effort, using effort to make up for any shortcomings, being more physical, being first to the ball, like winning those hustle plays. It takes you so far. The Magic overperformed their roster because they played harder. And that hasn't been the case as they become the hunted in this Eastern Conference this season. They're looking for that edge. And this losing streak and maybe all this noise and maybe having their backs against the wall, has finally given them that edge. Maybe that's why they do so well in the NBA Cup. But there's the record. There's directly from the guy who's supposedly involved, supposedly the guy who's having the problem, saying, no, we don't have a problem. We're all frustrated. We're all working hard. We're trying to figure this out. But there's no problem here. At least not publicly, at least not yet. And so now the question is, how do we move forward? How do we solve these problems? That has been the million-dollar question for the last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks, last month. And the answer has always been the same. It starts with your star. And it's been happening and developing over the course of the last month. But Paolo Banchero is finally and forcefully doing his part. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets though, well, that part, not so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You can take the Game Time app and find any event in your area, not just games, but shows, theater, concerts, and so much more. You get all-in price up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout, and you can even see your seat. You can see the stage, the court, the field, with a digital view from the app before you purchase your tickets. With great last-minute options too, NBA tickets show up at solid prices all the way up until tip-off. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. The NBA trade deadline is basically here. We are less than a week away from the deadline, Thursday, and we want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Magic fans, plus national chats where you can come hang out with fans from across the league. I'm usually hanging out in the Locked On Magic room. We're still a small but growing community. I am giving you my 3 thoughts after every quarter of every game the rest of the way. So you'll have my insight onto what's going on with the Orlando Magic as it's happening. These do not go up on my public feeds, so it's exclusive to the Discord server. You also get ad-free versions of the show, and if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can use code DEADLINE to get your first month free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. I have been very critical of Paolo Banchero. And like I said, I hope I make this clear, but like I've been saying, these are not criticisms in that I don't think Paolo Banchero is a great player. And I don't think he's the player that the Magic can build around. These are criticisms that are meant to be challenges. Challenges for him to step up and take the next step in his career. Obviously, that big piece is better efficiency. That big piece is being an impactor on winning. Having the stats show, oh, this team is better because you're on the floor. Now, he's 23 years old, so you're not giving up on him anyway. Anyone who's pitching me a Paolo for Giannis trade, I'm going to have to say no on that one, dog. Like, yeah, Giannis is amazing. He's hurt right now, but he is amazing. But we're looking at a 4 to 5 year window. Like, Giannis means you're winning immediately, and what you would need to trade for Giannis would probably cost you that championship. You know, would a Giannis Paolo pairing work? Probably not. Would a Giannis Franz pairing work? Maybe. But I'm not interested. I am committed to this group. I believe in the core and in the idea that Jeff Weltman has been building here. It's gotten us this far. And at 23 years old, like, yeah, there might be a setback or two. That's part of the process. this year has been a tricky one for Paolo. From the very beginning of the season, it felt like he was kind of feeling his way around. He was feeling his way out. He was trying to figure out what he needs to do to deliver for his team. And look, maybe he came into the season not quite in the shape he needed to be in. Not that he's out of shape, but not able to do the things that this team needs him to do. And maybe he came into the season determined to prove himself as a more efficient player and prove himself as this team first player. And he never struck the balance of knowing, oh, it's my turn now, versus, oh, I'm trying to get others involved. It has at times felt like Paolo has been too passive. Just like it has felt at times that Paolo has been too inefficient and making poor shot decisions. But just like last year, especially after the injury, it took Paolo a little while to kind of find himself. But it's safe to say over the last 15 games, he has. And it's safe to say that this is the version of Paolo Banchero the Magic have been waiting for. In 36 games total, so we're going to go full season numbers first, Paolo's averaging 21.9 points per game. That's down 4 points per game from last year, but that was kind of to be expected. He's shooting 15.9 field goal attempts per game, the second fewest of his career. Only his rookie year was fewer. And he has a 27.3% usage rate, which is a career low. So if you're asking, like, if you're saying, like, so Paolo's not getting enough shots, you're probably right. He's averaging 7.9 free throw attempts per game, which is the second most in his career. He was at 8.4 last year. If you're feeling like Paolo isn't getting enough shot attempts, you're probably a little bit right. Probably needs to go get some more shot attempts. But if you're feeling like Paolo isn't dominating the ball or isn't stalling the ball as much, you're also probably right. Now, it doesn't mean he doesn't still do this on occasion. It doesn't mean he still doesn't indulge his worst habits at times. But Paolo is trying to lean into the efficiency. Because guess what? Maybe it's not the numbers that everybody wants him to be at, but he is shooting a career best 46.2% from the floor on 3.8 3-point attempts per game, a career low, an area where he knows he is weak at, especially this season where his jumper's really not been there. He's shooting 29.2% from three. So the three-pointer's not there. He's getting to the basket more and more and more. And on top of this, he's averaging a career high 76.1% from the foul line on 7.9 free throw attempts per game. He is dishing out 4.9 assists per game, which again, in line with last season, trails only his sophomore season where he had 5.4 assists per game. And he's averaging a career high 8.8 rebounds per game. Well, I might still argue his rebounding could improve. I think he struggles sometimes in traffic, getting contested rebounds. I think defensively, he still has a long way to go. He's certainly not as mobile as he has been in the past. And so I think that remains a challenge for him and something to work on in the offseason. I think he'll need an offseason work. But this is far from Paolo's worst season. And this is far from abandon the kid because he hasn't delivered under pressure. Because look, with everything else going on, in the last 15 or so games, so since that loss to the Toronto Raptors, that's kind of December 29th, a month ago, that's where I've kind of set the dividing line in the season. His last 14 games, Paolo is averaging 25.1 points per game, right back in line with where he was last year. Averaging 9.6 rebounds per game, that would be a career high. Averaging 5.6 assists per game, that would be a career high. Shooting 50% from the floor on 17.9 field goal attempts per game. Shooting 38.6% from three. Shooting 76.9% from the foul line. An area maybe he could improve a little bit, but really good for him. His true shooting percentage has taken that jump too, for everyone talking about efficiency. Again, in the last 14 games, Paolo Banchero's true shooting percentage, if my stat page will load because I didn't have it ready, Paolo Banchero's true shooting percentage has taken a major leap toward last year after the All-Star break when we were all saying, oh, Paolo's made the turn. Paolo's made the leap. He's figured it out. He shot a 58% true shooting percentage. In his last 14 games, he's at 59.5%. 59.5%. Now, the Magic still have a minus 4.7 net rating when he is on the floor. And that is the next piece, is turning that into production. Now, I said this after the game on Monday. Paolo did everything he could to keep the team in that game. He will still need some help. He'll need a big game from Anthony Black like he had on Wednesday, or a big game, a big fourth quarter from Desmond Bane. The Magic were plus 27 in his minutes. Wednesday's game was everything we have been asking from Paolo Banchero. And the big thing I've been asking from him, big thing I have publicly said is this is my challenge to him, is I wanted to see him be a leader. The stuff you can't count, the stuff that isn't tangible. What are you doing to lift others up? What are you doing to set the example for others to follow? Because whether you like it or not, the responsibility of a star is to be the tone setter for the team. If the star is not playing hard, if the star is lax on some things, if the star isn't giving his effort, everyone else is going to follow. That is what leadership is. And I asked Paolo on Wednesday about how he's learning to be a leader. Look, he's 23. He's got, if these are the growing pains we have to go through to get to all NBA Paolo, so be it. I tell people, I've told a lot of people this, who are like, the season's a failure. I'm like, okay, we're not where we want to be yet, but we got a long way to go. Let's look at the complete picture before we judge anything, before we throw the towel in. That's my perspective on things. Maybe I'm too patient, maybe I'm naive, but I want to see the whole picture. And look, Paolo's career, the whole picture's not there. There's still a lot to paint in. But we're seeing him etch it in still. Maybe it's not as fast as we want it to be, but he's beginning to etch it in, and he's beginning to put it in pen, become the player he ultimately will be. The Magic are struggling right now, not because of Paolo Banchero. Let's say that as plainly and as clearly as I can. The Magic are not struggling anymore because of Paolo Banchero. There are slips. There are, again, the offense, I would agree, indulges some of Paolo's worst habits. And that might be a reason as much as any to fish around for something new. We'll see in the offseason. Again, I don't think anything's coming, at least until Franz returns, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Paolo's done his part now. If he plays like he played Monday and Wednesday, the rest of the season, and look, I'm not expecting 37 points and 31 points per game, but if he plays with the intensity and patience and poise that he played with in the last two games, and really even the fourth quarter against Cleveland on Saturday, the Magic will avoid the play-in. They're going to win a lot of games, and we'll see where they end up at the end of the season. That is all you can ask for. Because whether his critics want to admit it or not, and look, count me as a critic if you want to, but I firmly believe this too. Paolo's a better player now than he was last year. It may not feel like it all the time because he's going through growing pains. He's learning. But Paolo's already shown us he is a willing passer, and he's willing to sacrifice some of his shots and his looks to help others be better. And that is a sign of a leader as much as anything. It's just like other things with this team, putting all the pieces together to make it work. Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel and I spoke to Franz Wagner. Let's get an update on his injury, why the Magic might have to wait a little longer. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60. And FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, go Seahawks, riding with the underdog, boo Patriots, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you are a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Like the XFL doesn't quite do it, or UFL, whatever it's called. Indoor football isn't even on FanDuel. This is your last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That leaves one last big question, the last big piece of this puzzle, because trust me, I write down the Magic injury report every game for my preview article on Orlando Magic Daily, and it is so nice to only have 2 names on the Magic's injury report. It is so nice to not have a long, long list of injuries to go through, like crazy things to figure out. It's nice that it's only 2, but one of the players that's still out is a big one. There's just no doubt about it. Franz Wagner is sorely missed for this team. And look, this isn't a Franz or Paolo thing. Again, I think Paolo's generally been playing very, very well. You need your best players to be at your best. Like Paolo said it after the game, like, I understand as a leader, as a team leader, this team needs me to play well to win. And if I don't play well, if I don't contribute something, it's going to be hard. Like, honestly, that recognition is exactly what I want to hear from him. Like that's an understanding of his responsibility. And that is the first step for a star. So I've said a lot of things about Paolo. I don't want to make this segment about Paolo, but I've said a lot of things about Paolo. He's saying the things I want to hear. I don't know if he listens. He doesn't listen. He certainly does listen because he knows I didn't put anything out there. This is the challenge I wanted to take on. But look, the Magic need Franz Wagner. Balances lineups. Gives the Magic another 20-point per game scorer. Keeps Desmond Bane in a good spot on the floor. Keeps Jalen Suggs in a good spot on the floor. Makes it easier for other guys to play off of. And we were all super excited. I was kind of going back to my archives. I had that big episode explaining why Franz Wagner is so important. We had that big episode right before the team went to Berlin when it was clear Franz was getting ready to play again. Excited to have him back. And so to have this false start, to have him play only 2 games, and then recede into the background, it's frustrating. Jason, like I said, Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel and I, we were in Miami, in the locker room before the game. We spoke to Franz and just asked him kind of for a status update, how he's doing. And look, ankle sprains suck. High ankle sprains suck even more. I was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain one time. It was actually, I broke my foot. That's how like crazy high ankle sprains can be. I don't think Franz broke his foot. Let me be clear. So we asked Franz, like, how are you feeling? And he said, not great. You know, he mentioned that the soreness that he's feeling now started after the game in London. And he hoped that the time between games would allow the soreness to subside. Practice Wednesday, didn't go away. Went through shoot around Thursday before the game against the Hornets, didn't go away. And that's when the Magic decided to shut him down. And it forced Franz to make not a stunning admission, but an admission that he kind of hinted at when we spoke to him on Wednesday, but now seems to be pretty clear. Franz Wagner should not have played in Berlin. He came back too soon. So anyone who is complaining that the Magic baby players, that they take him out of games, that they don't rush him back, this is what happens. This is why they don't do that. And look, it was hugely important for Franz to play in Berlin. And he had a great game, considering it was his first game back. And he had some struggles. Him making that big 3 to tie the game with about, 2.5 minutes left, 3 minutes left. Him hitting that floater Like, I jumped out of my seat when he hit that floater because that was the game winner. As big as Anthony Black's dunk was to put the Magic up by 2 and give them the lead for good, that Franz Wagner floater was a great play, just a great shot, and it gave the Magic a 2-possession lead that Grizzlies were never going to catch up. That was a big moment. And for him to have that in Berlin, like, look, I don't want to take that moment away from him. I'm glad he played in Berlin. Is it worth this cost? Probably not. But I'm happy for him as a human being that he got to play an NBA game in his hometown, in his home city. But this is the reality of injuries. You don't know. You can't bet on these things. You can't rush these things. And now it seems Franz is taking the moment to slow down and make sure his body's right. Because as we were talking to him, he had his foot like kind of completely wrapped. It was doing some like electrical therapy thing. Like I couldn't even begin to explain it, but he's trying to get back as quickly as he can. Being smart about it, but as quickly as he can. And right now, like, I wasn't at shoot around, but Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel reported that Franz was on the bike the entire time during shoot around, doing some light stationary shooting. Like, who knows how quickly he'll ramp up? Like, obviously he played a week ago now. 2 weeks ago now. We're gonna have to be patient. And he might be out until the All-Star break. Like, look, the Magic have a tough, like, little road here, and then very manageable games to close to the All-Star break. Like, I would like to see Franz play in that 4-game homestand before the All-Star break. Absolutely. And maybe that is the target. The Brooklyn game, the Utah game, one of the Milwaukee games, just to get him out there. But it's all about how his body responds. Now, we know how vital Franz is. Before his injury against the Knicks, before he suffered the high ankle sprain, the Magic had won 10 of 13 games. When Franz is on the floor, the Magic are just so good. A plus 1.8 net rating when Wagner's on the floor. That includes the games in Europe where he really struggled. And they have a 111.7 defensive rating. He's one of the best defenders in the league. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Like, again, I am a big believer that Franz Wagner will be on an all-NBA, all-defensive team someday in his future. Jalen Suggs gets all the headlines because he's loud about it. Franz is just good. And so the Magic have struggled since his injury. There's no denying that. There are extenuating circumstances for it. And the Magic are hoping that they're coming out of it now. They had their 1-4 start. Now comes the winning 10 of 13, right? That's how this works. Are the Magic going to burn 10 of 13 here? I don't know. They got one last night. Let's see what happens on Friday. But the Magic aren't going to accomplish anything they want to accomplish in the spring without Franz. And so, as Franz said very, very clearly, the goal now is to be back and be back for good. And if that costs a little bit more time now, that was the price they paid to play him in Berlin. He's willing to acknowledge that. I think that's positive. Like Mo even said it on his podcast, if you get the German, if you get the translation, that he was proud of himself for pulling himself out of that game in London. He wasn't feeling great. Talked with the staff. He let the staff know. The staff discussed it with him, and they decided it was better to wait. We want these guys ready to play in March, April. There's a lot of work to do. The Magic can't afford to drop too many games. Like, we're in a race now. The Magic didn't put themselves in. They got to play some catch-up. But ultimately, in the Eastern Conference, Indiana made the finals as a 4 seed. Like, home court advantage matters. Don't get me wrong. But it's still going to be about doing the work to get there. And you can't do that work if you're not healthy. And if it is 100% true, if the Magic truly believe that the only thing holding them back is health, then they are just probably thinking, all we got to do is get into the field. Get into the field healthy. And then we'll see where the chips fall. That job starts Friday against the Raptors. So that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of the ways you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest, you can check us out on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, you can check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. And for my Everydayer Club members, message me either in the Discord server or direct message me on the Discord. I want to make sure I'm taking care of you guys. Ping me in the Locked On Magic Discord server, and I will get you a free subscription to my Patreon. Add that to your Everydayer Club. Add that to your $5 from the Everydayer Club. So we're trying to combine my two subscription servers that are in two different places. We're gonna take care of you. We're gonna make sure that you guys get everything Magic that you can get. Thank you all again for your support again, and be sure to check out our Everydayer Club if you haven't already to get ad-free audio feed, plus our members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com to join the club and learn more. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we will be recapping the Magic's game against Toronto Raptors. Can the Magic make it 2 games in a row? Can they continue to climb the Eastern Conference standings? We will find out at the Kia Center. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Phil Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.